Hi, I'm the Boss Problem Buster, founder of the Pay Raise Commando, a senior organizational consultant of 24 years, having worked across cultures, industries, and ranks with 7,250 employees trained between us, my team and I. I'm also a social psychologist with a master's and a bachelor's degrees, both with honors. My team and I train passed over corporate professionals like you to get that pay raise and promotion you're overdue for so that you can finally kill your Monday blues before you sink further and bring your inner joy back, which is the best part of my job and the goal of this channel. Kill your Monday blues and bring your inner joy back. Now, back to the salt mines. If you've just been passed over for a promotion and the pay raise that goes with it, this is for you. I know you're trying to wreck your brain around how was that loser promoted over me? I know you want to F the whole thing off, the company, your boss, the loser that got your promotion, the whole effing situation. You want to slam the door in your idiot boss's face and just walk away. And there's no denying that that would be so satisfying. Employees all over the world indulge in this very fantasy every single day. But you know you shouldn't. But it's really tempting and you really want to. So I'm going to give you the 4 biggest no-nos of what you should not do immediately after being passed over for a promotion and the pay raise that goes with it, or I guarantee you will 100% mess up your career to a far greater degree than just this promotion you didn't get. As I was saying, there are 4 things you should not do immediately after being passed over for a promotion and the pay raise that goes with it. Number 1, do not leave. Do not threaten to leave. Do not resign. Do not slam the door and walk away in one of those grandiose gestures. Why? Because you're not going to be able to pull a George Costanza bit of quitting while storming out, then coming back on Monday as if nothing has ever happened, okay? Which is actually, as an aside, something Larry David, whom the character is based on, did do. And it did work out for him, but hey, you're not Larry David, okay? And I'm not saying you should stay there forever, of course not. But quitting now will derail your career, guaranteed. And as a proof, I'm going to break down every possible realistic scenario that will unfold the moment you succumb to this burning temptation to quit right now. I'll put the whole thing down in the description, so don't worry about it. Just focus on the reasoning that I'm laying before you so that you can make your own informed decision. So why not quit? Firstly, you're upset, so you're not thinking straight. It's like texting when you're drunk, but worse. You cannot make clear, good decisions that will benefit you if you're in a state. Your reasoning faculties are deficient or completely gone. No good can come of it. So not the time for life-altering decisions like quitting. Secondly, you're not that rich that you don't need a salary. Yes, you've lost that pay raise that came with that promotion you were passed over for. And I know it's heart-wrenching, but what about your current salary? What about your current pay? Are you so willing to waver it away so carelessly? Are you insane? Do you have some other money stashed away somewhere so that you can fall back on? Come on. Thirdly, resigning when you're down, and you are down right now, will 100% sabotage your chances of landing another job, especially a good one. And this is true for both the short and the long term. How so? Well, 2 ways. Here's my crystal ball reading. Actually, I should do this. Never mind. You don't make a sexy candidate or applicant when you're demoralized. You're not that good of an actor. We've already established that. Remember George Costanza, Larry David? Your low spirits and your undermined confidence and self-esteem will absolutely shine through, which is not the kind of shine you want. Secondly, you won't be able to have an appealing reply to basic questions regarding your previous workplace. And you know these questions are staples at any job interview, so they will definitely come up. And for a good reason, by the way. It is absolutely understandable for a potential new employer to want to know how you did with the previous one. And thirdly, the more time you're unemployed, the more this situation will worsen because your soul will have been broken by that time. And worse yet, you will have accepted maybe a much lesser job than just to pay the bills. Need proof? Still, let's do a thought experiment. Say you've resigned. You went into you fulfilled this fantasy. You went into your boss's office and told him or her to their face just what you thought of them and the whole effing company and that loser that got your promotion and how you're not going to take it any longer and how they don't deserve you and how you can do so much better elsewhere, and you stormed out. Okay, great. Now what? Obviously, you're looking for a job, right? You're looking for another job. So now, to continue this thought experiment, imagine yourself sitting across from an HR recruiter. How would that play? How would that go when she asks you, why did you leave? A basic question to ask, right? What was your position there? And after you answer, really? You've been there for so many years and no promotion? How so? And the all-time pièce de résistance question of any job interview ever: what will your ex-boss say about you? What indeed? So what are you going to reply? I left because they passed me over for a promotion because they thought I wasn't worthy the pay raise or the higher position in the company, and now I come here to you to take me in like you were some sort of a workforce statue of liberty. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, the wretched refuse. Do you want to be a wretched refuse? Do you think that HR recruiters want to hire other organizations, wretched refuse? Really? And going on with this thought experiment, just a little bit more. What about when she actually calls your boss? Well, your ex-boss by then. When she actually calls your boss to ask feedback about your performance and the terms you left on, your ex-boss will be bound to admit the truth, even if they like you and they want to help you. The truth both about having preferred somebody else over you for a promotion and about the scene you caused when you quit. Remember George Costanza? In short, do not leave immediately after being passed over for promotion and the pay raise that goes with it. The second don't is do not give an ultimatum. If I don't get a promotion and the pay raise that goes with it within 6 months, I'm out of here. Of course, you will say it in a nice way, but it will still be an ultimatum. There are two reasons why thou shalt give an ultimatum. Firstly, you have no wiggle room. Think about it. What will the ultimatum be exactly? To make an ultimatum, or rather to win one, you need to have something substantial that the other party wants and can't have otherwise. We have already established that this is not the case with you at this time. Dude, you were just passed over for promotion, meaning you were deemed by your boss or employer as not worthy, or at least less worthy than the one who got it, of being in a less worthy of being in a higher position, better paying position, a position that would enable you to control more control over people and processes and results and budgets. Does this sound to you like having the upper hand? And just in case rhetorical questions escape you, the answer is no, a resounding no. You do not have the upper hand, so you do not get to give an ultimatum. And if you do, you will be crushed, you will be humiliated because your boss will reply, and rightfully so, with something like, okay, so quit. After which you will either have to indeed quit when you didn't really want to and you're completely unprepared for, with all that entails, as we've already covered, or You will have to grovel your way out of it, which means you will not only be humiliated, but also you will have no chance of ever getting a promotion ever in that workplace. You will be doomed to see the backs of all your juniors being promoted over you for all eternity, which is the worst case scenario. Much, much worse than just being passed over this once, which was your original circumstance before you decided to play macho. The second reason why you shouldn't give an ultimatum is that the wise gives an ultimatum only when they are certain they're going to win it, or at least if the odds are in your favor and it's quite probable that the other side will back up and you will get what you want. This is the only circumstance in which an ultimatum may succeed, but even then, it is very likely to put you in a bind in the longer run, which I'll address in a moment. This, however, is not the circumstance you're in, my friend. You're in a diametrical opposite corner because of all that being passed over business. Now, suppose you do have a bit of an edge over your boss or employer, some upper hand. What would that be? It would have to be some very unique professional knowledge or acumen that is either unique in your field as a whole or specifically at your company. Why? Because that would make you harder to replace altogether or specifically in a bind, the bind being, looking at it from your company's perspective, the bind being either the fact that your resignation is a surprise to your company, as it is indeed to you, or that they have some pending tight deadlines of delivery to clients, or that the company is otherwise stressed, maybe finances, maybe others in your department have just left and they were not yet replaced, or they were replaced, but the new recruits are still acclimating, so they're not fully productive yet, or all of the above. These circumstances, and only them, would be the exception to the rule where you could indeed give an ultimatum and win it, but it would be a victory very short-lived and at a tremendously high price that will come back to bite you. So a total Pyrrhic victory. How so? Well, your ultimatum victory would bring two different additional problems on top of everything else we've already covered. Well, firstly, it won't do you any good. It won't get you anywhere because your boss can't promise you, let alone guarantee, when the next opportunity for you will come up, because your boss doesn't know when the next relevant position will become available, if at all. It could be the next day, 6 months down the line, a year, who knows? For a position to become available, somebody will have to leave or be promoted or get fired, or an altogether new position should be formed. So even if your boss would have liked to make you a promise and a pact in return to you obliging him or her with your stay, he or she cannot, for those objective reasons. These are objective reasons. It's just out of their control. Secondly, your boss will hate you till the day you die. Nobody likes being pushed over, all the more so by a subordinate. What do you think people feel when you manage to twist their arms? Is this a good basis for a working relationship, or any relationship for that matter? This is the epitome of a short-term gain that has a mid-term disaster spelled all over it. So not even a long-term. This will come back to haunt you very quickly. The third don't of what not to do immediately after being passed over for promotion and the pay raise that goes with it is don't be passive aggressive. This will be the worst you can do for yourself, or actually to yourself. This one is so common you wouldn't believe it. And it ties in directly to the first two don'ts. People who understand they should not leave although they want to, and they understand they should not give an ultimatum, although they want to, resort to being insufferable instead. There is nothing worse than somebody pretending to be cool about something, not being promoted in this case, when their entire constitution screams the exact opposite is true. Think about it. If they've passed you over for a promotion before, what is going to happen now? You will never get it because no one will be able to stand you, and for a good reason. At least be man enough or woman enough to acknowledge how you feel. Not in an overly sharing way, but just admitting you're upset. And if you really think you have a case regarding the unfairness of being passed over, and I mean a factual case, not just an emotional one because you're upset, then put your facts together and assert yourself to your boss and your colleagues. You will still be out of a promotion, but it will start your campaign for the next time. I'll expand on that in a separate video if you want. So let me know in the comments down below. So trying to pretend you're fine with it and supposedly play nice while spewing bitterness and resentment and being an all-around bad sports will not ingratiate you to anyone. On the contrary, you will probably get sad in the next round of downsizing, and rightfully so. Is that what you want? Which is directly related to the fourth and final don't of what not to do immediately after being passed over for promotion and the pay raise that goes with it. Don't be quick to blame it on your idiot boss, or your effed up company. Maybe they are indeed exactly as you say, but as long as you choose to work there, you choose, remember, especially since you want a promotion and a pay raise, you need to figure out how to win in those very circumstances. This is the sandbox you chose to play in. So learn to play in this specific one. And for that, you need a long, hard reality check and a ton of introspection long before casting blame elsewhere. And you need the tools and best practices, which is exactly what this channel will teach you. So subscribe, like, notification bell, you know the drill. And before we go, just a short postscriptum I would be remiss not to mention. Everything I said up till now is true for both men and women. This one, however, is for the ladies only. So the fifth don't will be, ladies, for the love of God, don't cry at the office. Whatever it was that got you passed over for, crying, even if it's a little sniffle, will just prove that point and solidify it in their minds. And it will be very hard to recover from, maybe impossible, probably impossible. So don't. Let me tell you a secret no employee knows or understands. Your boss is anxious about you not being promoted just as you are, maybe even more. Yes, I've said more. I know it sounds odd, but it's true. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just giving you the facts nobody else will. How do I know? Well, 23 years of working with bosses just like yours and seeing things from their point of view. This is how. So in this two-part video, I will A, prove it to you, and B, show you how you can use it to your advantage. So here it is. After deciding against you with a promotion or pay raise or both, your boss dreads, no less, the moment of passing you in the hall, having to look you in the eye and make small talk, or worse, from his perspective, the moment you will look him in the eye and ask why. Why not me? For crying out loud, how could you pick that loser over me? Of course he'd say it differently, but that would be the gist of it. And when you do, he knows he will have to come up with an answer. So here are the scenarios your boss is running frantically in his head that cause his anxiety over you. He could either tell you the truth, which will probably deflate your motivation and performance, or he could brush you off with some made-up, feel-good, kumbaya bullshit that will appease you so that you can all go back to business as usual. However, both options are dreadful to him. Literally dreadful. How so? Well, the first option, where he tells you the truth on why he chose to give that promotion or pay raise or both to that other guy, not you, is dreadful to your boss two ways. Firstly, on a personal level, it is very hard to look someone in the eye and tell them, meaning you, the unpleasant truth about themselves, meaning you again, especially when it is bound to make the relationship awkward at best and straight out acrimonious at worst. Secondly, on a professional level, when your motivation and performance go down, this reflects negatively on your boss. Not one, not two, but three ways this happens. First, in his everyday managerial duties, having to deal with you. And who wants to deal with a disgruntled worker? Then, so it's the second way, there's the team to deal with. We all know the dynamics within a team are always complex enough as it is. But it gets even more complex when one member, that would be you, is not pulling his weight. And you're not pulling your weight because you were told the truth, which you didn't like, which deflated your motivation and performance, which is exactly as your boss suspected and feared. And then all of that, in turn, will reflect negatively on your boss in a third way, probably the most damaging to him, the way his superiors see him. So he is truly between a rock and a hard place if he tells you the truth. The second option your boss is frantically considering, where he bullshits you into appeasement and a business as usual relationship, is also dreadful to him. Because firstly, it is difficult to look someone in the eye and lie to them, meaning you, just as it is telling them the truth. Secondly, it is especially hard if the employee, meaning you, does not buy the lies and keep probing further on the why. The more you probe, the more your boss will weave an even more tangled web of lies than he already has. And thirdly, even if he manages to somehow appease you, he knows his tangled web of BS will 100% come back to bite him. When? When the next opportunity presents itself for a promotion or a pay raise or both. Why? Because when that happens, you will be assuming it's in the bag, your bag, based on this cockamamie talk he's had with you. So either way, a dreadful catch-22, which is exactly why your boss is totally anxious about you not getting that promotion or pay raise or both, just as you are, maybe even more. QED, I rest my case. Now remember, these are all scenarios your boss is frantically running in his head, which is the reason for his dread of you. Indeed, in his mind, you're the Dread Pirate Roberts, no less. And wouldn't you have loved to be Wesley and win the Princess Bride? Alas, my friend, I've prepared a very different role for you today, from an entirely different movie, yet as remarkable. Not as alluring perhaps, but much more practical for your predicament, trust me. You will be, wait for it, Dorothy, all lost and confused, thinking her destiny depends on the whim of the all-powerful Wizard of Oz. And I will be your little doggy Toto, pulling back the curtain, exposing all the smoke and mirrors behind your boss's Wizard of Oz performance of confidence and being in control. And what you'll find will blow your mind, because you'll realize you've always had the power to go back to Kansas. And that will make you look at your current conundrum in a whole new way you never thought possible. Sounds interesting? Stick around. Number one do, which is the focus of this part, is indeed understand your boss's psychology and how it can work to your advantage. Now, if you're like most employees, Dorothy, wink wink, I can't wink so I have to say, you tend to forget that your boss is not as omnipotent as he seems to be, much like the all-powerful Wizard of Oz. If you pull back the curtain, as I'm now doing, remember I'm your little doggy Toto, you find out that it's just some guy pulling on some levers and often quite clueless as to what to do in the face of direct conflict. Just like when Dorothy confronts the wizard, and as you may confront your boss with the why not me question that he so dreads, as we've seen before. This might seem confusing or oxymoronic, but it's not. Two things can be true at the same time. Your boss did indeed have the power to decide against you regarding that promotion and or pay raise. So in that respect, he was all powerful, but he himself is constantly subject to a complex matrix of interpersonal and political dynamics, both within his department and outside of it, with peers and superiors. A crucial part of this matrix is the immense psychological power that a problematic or a rogue or a harder to control employee have over him, as they do any boss. I've seen it time and time again, to the point where you really come to wonder, who's the real boss here? Just like that 80s sitcom, Tony was the one in control in more cases than one, not his boss. Simply put, the more rogue an employee is, the more the boss is willing to do to appease that employee, just so that he himself can have some peace and quiet. By the way, let me go off on a tangent here for a second. If you're wondering why I refer to your boss and others as he, it's just time consuming and annoying to keep saying he or she, and I'm sick of using the PC they, because it makes for ridiculous sentences which completely defy basic syntax and grammar, so I'm going with a he. And if I don't forget, next time I'll go with a she, so we'll alternate between the two. Fair enough? You know, it's crazy that it even needs to be addressed, but these are the times we live in, and I just don't want that to distract anyone from the issue at hand. So let's all just keep our eyes on the ball here, which is your boss's psychology, whatever gender he, she, they may be. So as I've said, the more rogue an employee is, the more the boss is willing to do to appease that employee, just for his own personal peace and quiet. This is the paradox nobody understands or pays attention to, which is why we need this long form drill down. You may think this is counterintuitive, but it actually makes perfect sense. The only reason why it might seem counterintuitive is your innate but false assumption that your boss is both capable and willing to confront whomever is necessary in order to assert his leadership and to make that employee compliant and easier to manage, especially someone like you who is in his own department and under his direct supervision. You would think that, because that is what he is paid to do, among other things. But this is not the case most of the time. Most bosses, especially mid-management, for sure lower management, but you would be surprised how often this is true for top management as well. Anyway, the point is, most of them would be willing to put up with a lot, and I mean a lot, just to avoid confrontation of any sort. There is a much higher chance for most bosses to be either wimps or passive-aggressive, rather than true leaders with everything that entails or should entail. And don't be fooled by all the leadership programs they attend. Leadership is just an overused and misused term for what is otherwise mostly a bureaucratic, administrative, cog in the system mentality that is needed to perform well in most big organizations. Well, leadership and, of course, empowerment, which is the most prostitutionalized term ever. But we'll address that one another time. Don't even get me started on that. So from now on, I'll use management rather than leadership. It's just a more accurate term in the context that we're talking about. Now, management is akin to parenthood with all the obvious differences, and your boss's dread of you, after having passed you over, is very much akin to parents' reaction to unruly children. Think of a family where one kid is a good boy and the other is a bad boy. The parents' energy, focus, and intent will naturally be directed towards dealing with a bad boy, with the result of neglecting the good boy. This means at first trying to educate him, then disciplining him more and more. But as time goes by, if his rambunctious behavior is still intact, their energy will dwindle and they will do anything to avoid confrontation with that child, to the point of laxing their demands on him in terms of house rules, chores, and general behavior, even at the expense of their parental values. So for example, their parental educational value may be, in terms of behavior, to insist the boy addresses adults politely, both at home and at school, which is a great educational value to show respect. But in practice, they would look the other way when the bad boy is being disrespectful to them or to uncles and aunts and teachers, just out of exhaustion and fear of turning yet another mundane situation into a full-blown tantrum. And anybody who's ever dealt with kids knows exactly what I'm talking about. So now the whole family dynamics is flipped, a complete 180. Not only is the bad boy catered to and constantly appeased by his parents, but also the good boy is getting all the discipline. Furthermore, the parents' nerves are so frayed at this point that the good boy is being disciplined for every minor infringement that would have otherwise gone either not noticed or noticed but not retaliated. So the good boy is being disciplined even if he doesn't deserve it, and when he does deserve it, to a harsher degree than his behavior warrants. It's all topsy-turvy. And if you're into a Freudian take on it, one might suggest that the parents are much harsher with a good boy as an overcompensation for their failure with a bad boy, and as a means of channeling their own growing frustration and hostility. Keep this in mind. It will relate back to your boss later on. Now, it may seem that we've digressed there, but no, let me assure you this is right on topic, because this is the professional and the political and personal and psychological context your boss is functioning in. And if you want to get ahead in an office that he's running, you need to understand it thoroughly. Plus, I did promise you a deep drill down into your boss's psychology, and that's exactly what we're doing. So in this family analogy, the parents are obviously the boss, but you might be wondering which of the kids you are. Are you the bad boy or the good boy? This will become clear later on, so hang in there. It will totally be worth it, I promise. So to wrap up this example, the most important and pertinent to your situation point here is understanding why and how this unfair and completely upside down dynamics are possible. The answer is quite sobering, if not completely depressing, if you stop to think about it. It is possible, listen to this, it is possible only because the parents know, drum roll, that the good boy will comply. The disciplinary action will go uncontested, even if somewhat protested. In other words, the good boy gets the shorter end of the stick just because his parents do not fear a retaliation from him. So the paradox is, if you're a good boy, in the sense that you're not feared, you lose. A bit of a dramatic pause here is warranted. Now, does it mean you need to be uncontrollable, impossible to deal with, unpleasant, an a-hole? Of course not, God no. It does mean, however, that being too vanilla will get you tossed aside too easily every time, for sure. Vanilla doesn't make the cut. You should mix in some stronger flavors to create a more robust office persona. And obviously, you need to have a level of sophistication here in order to do it right. It's all about subtleties and degrees of subtleties. I'll address that more in the next part. Also, there's a huge caveat that comes with all that. So please listen carefully, like that 60s song, Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. Do not twist this into some cop-out as to why you actually lost the promotion or pay raise or both. Oh, poor me, I'm just too good of a person, so they step all over me. Weep, weep. The world is just so cruel and unfair. Well, of course it is. We all know that, but that's irrelevant. And as I said in the previous masterclass, this workplace, the one you're in, this is the sandbox you chose to play in. So you need to figure out the rules of how to win in it. Or get out and find another sandbox to play in. One with rules you like better, and I would applaud you for such a move as long as you do it smartly and help you as best I can to do this transition, but as long as you choose. I'm big on personal responsibility, as you can tell by now. As long as you choose to stay where you are, be it out of convenience or fear or whatever it is, I don't want to hear any bitching about how supposedly unfair your workplace is. Okay, time to put everything together. Your boss is akin to those parents with the good boy and the bad boy. The good boy, let's now call him a good employee because we want to apply the analogy to your workplace reality. So the good employee is good from the boss's perspective, which is the whole point of this whole masterclass. He is good in the sense that the boss does not dread him and does not expect any overt objection or any sort of retaliation from him, the good employee, in terms of damaging the work in any way in reaction to the boss's decision. And that lack of dread is true even when the boss's decision is to pass over said good employee for a promotion or a pay raise or both. The flip side is that the boss does dread the bad boy. Let's now call him a bad employee. He dreads him in regards to any possible reaction to every move the boss makes as his boss. Will there be a tantrum? Will there be a delay in deadlines? Will bad employee incite others in the team against the boss? Which brings us full circle to where we started. The different scenarios your boss is frantically running in his head because he does not know whether you're going to be a good employee or a bad one after being passed over by him in terms of how subdued or vocal your reaction would be, how implicit or explicit your disappointment will be expressed, and whether you would keep it between yourself and him, the boss, or try to drag as many people in the team in as possible. And because he does not know which of those scenarios you're going to play out, he dreads you and has anxiety of the you not being promoted by him, just like you do, maybe even more. So once again, QED. Furthermore, this is why your boss, as any other boss to be fair, will always, listen closely, he will always take the good boy / employee for granted trusting that that front is secure for him while constantly trying to appease the bad boy slash employee in order to divert himself from any potential conflict that is always on the horizon with the bad boy slash employee in his team. And actually, if you stop to think about it, you'll see this paradox is true for every facet of life, not just work, relationships, family, friends, the lot. So, Dorothy, now that your little doggy Toto has pulled back the curtain on your boss's psychology, just as promised, you understand how and why your boss is much more vulnerable than you might have originally thought him to be. So, not the all-powerful Wizard of Oz, but just some guy pulling on some levers, quite clueless as to what to do in the face of direct or even a potential conflict. Indeed, as you are going through your 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, as the famous psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross postulated, your boss is going through 5 stages of his own, and here they are as per my observations over the years. We've actually already touched on most of them, but let me just wrap it up nicely for you. The first stage is anxiety. This is true especially if you were indeed a valid contender for that promotion or pay raise or both. The more valid you were, the more anxiety your boss experiences at the time leading into the decision while making it, which is, by the way, he probably would have liked not to fall on his shoulders at all, and right after making the decision to pass you over. And it's easy to understand why. The closer the race was, the more difficult it was for your boss to choose. Which of course begs the question, what was the tipping point against you? If indeed it was a close call, or if it turned out it wasn't a close call, why wasn't it so? And worse yet, why did you think it was when it wasn't? Many heavy issues we need to seriously drill down into in the future, as we most definitely will. I'm actually writing a book about it, there's so much to say. But for now, let's go on with the 5 stages that your boss goes through after having passed you over. Number 2 is monitoring. This is a highly alert and tense time for your boss as he carefully observes your reaction and its influence on everybody else's within the team, especially monitoring the tension, either explicit or implicit, that is bound to exist between you and the one who got your promotion, plus the whole office political dynamics as a result of that. All that while wishing you would either curb your emotions as much as possible, or that if you do express your disappointment explicitly, that it will be manageable and not distract the team too much from its needed performance. And now the road bifurcates. If it turns out that you are indeed subdued, whether truly subdued or just passive-aggressively so is another matter, but at this point your poor boss will gladly take any form of subdued. So if you're subdued, and if the impact on the political and professional and interpersonal dynamics within the team is minimal, then the next 3 stages he would go through to complete his cycle of 5 are what I call the 3 R's. Relief, reassurance of his decision not to promote you but that other guy, and resumption of business as usual. This is what your boss hopes happen. In other words, this would happen if you turn up to be a good boy / employee. However, if you're not as subdued in your reaction to being passed over as your boss would have hoped, then he goes through a totally different set of 3 steps. These would be stress, wondering how difficult is it going to be, how long will it last, How will it affect the team's deliverables? Then appeasing, working out a way to give you something as a consolation prize. And lastly, containing, lowering the flames enough so that he will have bought himself some more time to find another opportunity for you as a compensation for having failed you the first time. In other words, this would happen if you turn up to be a bad boy/employee. So now that you know, as promised, I always keep my word. Which do you prefer to be? The good boy/employee or the bad boy/employee? I think this is a good cliffhanger to stop at. Maybe not as good as Who Shot JR, but close enough. We've seen that your boss is very vulnerable after passing you over for a promotion or a pay raise or both, even more so than you are, which at first might have sounded odd or impossible, but I think by the end of it, you were convinced. Today, we'll see how this vulnerability of his is your in the quest to rehabilitate and rebuild your crushed position in your department, so you will learn how to use it to your advantage. Let me give you the quickest TLDR, too long didn't read, on the first part. You need to be a bad boy employee, full stop. We have 8, no less, to-dos right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both. The number one do, you already know, is understand your boss's psychology and how it can work to your advantage. Now, let's take this understanding of your boss's psychology, this psychological sophistication that you now possess, and convert it to a political sophistication. Whenever I say political, I refer only to office politics, nothing else. This political sophistication is priceless because it enables you to navigate more astutely in the whitewater rapids that are office politics. And that is crucial because it is that navigation which will get you that promotion and or pay raise you so desperately want. And thus, the second do right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both is indeed the conclusion of the first do, and that is be a bad boy employee. As we've seen in part 1, there is a paradox of the good boy versus the bad boy, so by now you know which one will work for you and to your advantage and why. But what would that actually look like? What would your boss's appeasement of you potentially be? Here are some options. Maybe your boss will give you some new responsibilities that you really would like to have, or maybe less of the responsibilities you don't like. Maybe a degree of control over projects that are near and dear to you if you didn't have any before, or a greater degree of control if you already had some, or maybe even a lead role in a tentpole project, making you a true linchpin. Sounds good, doesn't it? Moreover, if you succeed in those new projects and responsibilities, it would be a proof of concept of your managerial and even leadership skills, which is bound to help you in the next round of a race to the coveted promotion. So think of it as a consolation prize. It's not the first prize you wanted, but it's better than nothing, especially if it is within the general direction of where you want to go. So being a bad boy employee will potentially get you everything you wanted in a much easier and straightforward way that you could have ever expected. Plus, it could be a real boost to you at this time after being passed over, both psychologically and practically. Now, it's worth noting, and as a realist, I would be remiss not to mention it, no one can say for sure what your boss may or may not do for sure. It depends on a complex matrix of a billion moving parts, which is why I can't promise you anything. Nobody can, but isn't it worth a shot? Especially when you compare it to where you are right now? Which brings us to the third do right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both. Getting the bad boy employee mentality right. Remember we said it was about political sophistication? Well, the sophistication is the what, the concept, the core. Then you have the subtleties and the degrees of subtleties, which are the how, the execution. This is tricky and it may take some practice to get it right, especially if you used to being the good boy employee and now you find yourself needing to completely switch your entire workplace mentality. So let me help you there. There are 5 tools here. First and foremost is to remember what bad boy employee mentality is not. And it is not 2 things. It is not being disrespectful to your boss or a jerk to everybody else. Absolutely not. You should always be respectful to your boss. Well, to everybody for that matter. But, and this is B, respectful also does not mean being subservient or a doormat or anything that is spineless. Remember that. This is the precise spot where good boy employees get lost and mess it up for themselves. Which leads to the second tool to getting the bad boy employee, excuse me, I'm a bit under the weather, to getting the bad boy employee mentality right. What respect is. Here's my definition. Tell me in the comments if you agree and if I left something out. Respect is addressing anyone with an acknowledgement of him or her as humans, then acknowledging their title through the rights and privileges that go with it. So in the case of your boss, obviously he has the right to tell you what to do at the office, for example. You can try to influence him on that, but you must accept and respect that this is within his prerogative. Another aspect of respect is meeting people, obviously your boss included, as we're focused on your relationship with him. So meeting people at eye level and going into each and every interaction with an a priori goodwill intent. That's it. Now the next step after giving respect is getting it. Being able to command respect from others, your boss included, and indeed everything you hear on this channel, including what we're talking about right now, has an undercurrent of just that. So finding this fine line between being respectful to others and being respected by others through commanding respect. You know how some people project that they are not to be trifled with? Not in a violent way, of course. Well, there is that. But that's not what we're talking about. But something in their air and countenance. So finding this fine line between the two is exactly where the psychological sophistication and political and behavioral sophistication will need to come into place. These are the subtleties and the degrees of subtleties that I mentioned before. And speaking of which, here's a fun fact for you. People like getting respect from people they themselves respect. They don't care about getting respect from some spineless doormat. Of course that person gives them respect. That person does so to anybody who has a bit of a backbone. That's no big deal. However, getting respect from somebody who commands respect, themselves, whoa, now you're talking. Which goes back to the good boy, bad boy paradox from yet another angle. Respect begets respect, begets respect. Spinelessness begets pity. And that's from the good-hearted people, whereas it evokes maliciousness in assholes. And by the way, even those good-hearted people, they may feel a need to protect the spineless person, but no respect even from them. The only way to receive it is to command it. The third tool to getting the bad boy employee mentality right is being goal-oriented. How? Set a clear goal and keep repeating it in your head. Your goal is to start paving a new road for a promotion and or a pay raise. Why new? Well, obviously the last one didn't work. How? by course correcting almost everything you did or did not do prior to your unsuccessful bid, starting with everything on this masterclass series. The fourth tool to getting the bad boy employee mentality right is be pragmatic. If you want to achieve your goal, you need your entire decision-making process to be compatible with that goal. And since your goal is to make sure you are not passed over the next time around, this takes precedence over everything else at the workplace. So for example, if your colleagues are saying, hey, let's go to lunch, it'll be fun, but you have a deadline you want to meet, order in and eat at your desk or bring food from home. Yes, it may cost you a bit in social currency, but it is a price you have to pay. I didn't say you'd like what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what you need to do realistically without the customary bullshit fluff. Maybe here's another example you may not like but must do. Maybe you would have preferred not to work with a certain colleague you don't really like on a specific assignment or project. So were it not for your focus on your goal, you might have tried to convince someone else to come on board and would have wasted tons of time and effort on it, or you would have tried to relieve yourself from that assignment or project using whatever excuse you could, but you realized that since this colleague is willing and available, working with him or her is the pragmatic thing to do and will enable you to deliver on time. So you talk yourself into this partnership because it's not about your preferences or your emotions, it's about the goal. Thus, keeping your focus on the goal is the what, and pragmatism is the how that enables said what. The fifth and final tool to getting the bad boy employee mentality right is doing the internal, introspective work. This is crucial because putting on a show of you supposedly being a bad boy when you're actually a good boy employee won't do. People will see right through you. They won't bite. And besides, we've already established in the 4 Don'ts Masterclass that you're not that good of an actor. I'll put it up here. I think it's that side. What you need is to be comfortable in your bad boy skin so that it will come off as natural and as organic as possible. Plus, you need to be confident for it to work. Otherwise, your boss will call your bluff. You cannot fake it till you make it in this case, but you can get there gradually over time. Not too much time though, to not lose momentum. So weeks, months tops, not years. This is again the whole sophistication and subtlety I mentioned before. It's not about changing your spots as much as it is about making sure to show them who you really are, which is exactly why you need to do the internal introspective work before manifesting it to others. The more your inside will become a true bad boy employee, in the sense I've described it, the more natural and authentic it will come out as in every dealing you have with your boss and everybody else at the office. So we have built the foundations for what to do right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both. And we did it through first understanding your boss's psychology and how it can work to your advantage, which I introduced in part 1 of this series. Then we have built on that to get to the right mentality that would work to your advantage. And we did this with a deep dive into the why you need to be a bad boy employee and getting that bad boy employee mentality just right, which I introduced in part 2. Now it's time to move ahead to the final step, which is the implementation of all of the above. but you can't implement before you've mastered those foundations. So hopefully you have watched parts 1 and 2 at least once by now, so we're all on the same page. Okay, let's get going. The number 4 do right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both is express your distress. You need to start paving a new road that will take you all the way to the next opportunity for a pay raise or promotion or both, and you need to do this out of the rubble that is your current political position at the office, together with your crushed self-esteem and a sprinkle of a sense of betrayal for good measure. This may sound too dramatic, but it's not. It's an accurate description of your emotional state at this time, isn't it? These are indeed the hallmarks of being passed over. And since this is your emotional state, you might be doing what many others tend to do in such a state, and that is going to your shell like a turtle or a snail, or being subdued in your expression of your distress, i.e., more of a good boy employee mentality and behavior. Now, express your distress is one of those steps where subtleties come into play again. So you need to make sure you understand what it is and what it is not. So in this video, you'll get the 5-step sequence of how to execute this, plus exact scripts with precise wording for you to say, plus how to actually assert yourself to your boss and colleagues right after being passed over for a promotion or pay raise or both in a way that will ensure it never happens again. Stay tuned. Express your distress does not mean being over-emotional, crying, collapsing, acting depressed and miserable, being overtly emotionally distraught, and altogether extremely touchy-feely. This is what it's not. It is, however, easily admitting to anyone at the office who cares to listen, yes, of course I'm upset, I'm extremely disappointed, and even deeply surprised, and yes, hurt. It is also okay if you walk around with a longer face than usual for some time. Just don't be all doom and gloom, because then you'll just repel people. Plus, you might project an air of emotional instability if you do that, which is obviously not what you want. So the trick is admitting what you are truly feeling without trying to hide it and having the body language to match, but, and here comes the subtlety, without being too emotionally needy or crossing the bounds of appropriate emotional expression in the workplace. This is true regarding your boss, your colleagues, and everybody you come in contact with at the office. You'd be surprised, but it also includes clients and vendors. With them, you should never initiate this conversation, but if it comes up, you should address it heads-on without flinching. This is more likely to happen with long-time clients and vendors. They tend to be involved to some degree or another with many people across your department, sometimes to a degree of real friendships that have evolved over the years. So the grapevine regarding you being passed over is very likely to get to them as well, and they may address it, so you need to be prepared, which is what we're doing now. Also, they may be friends with you too, so they may feel close enough so that they can't afford not to touch on the subject. So if they initiate it, do not shy away from it. Do not freeze. Do not feel awkward or uncomfortable. I'm preparing you now so that that doesn't happen. Instead, do the following. And here comes the 5-step sequence with the precise wording I've promised before. First, acknowledge it. Yes, it's true. I was passed over. Then, admit your feelings that are normal human feelings to have. Anybody anybody would have those feelings under the same circumstances. So, yes, I'm very disappointed and upset. And here comes the most important part. It has to do with your professionalism. So, this you obviously do with your boss and colleagues as well, not just clients and vendors. Stress that those feelings do not have anything to do with your commitment to the project you're working on together, then add, because I am a professional, and then finish with a note of hope that also shows resilience on your part. I'm sure there will be other opportunities, so I'll just up my game even further. Now, remember the sophistication and subtleties I keep talking about? Well, here's another example of that and why it is so important. Note my very precise wording. I'll just up my game even further. There are three subtleties here. A, it's not that my game was down up till now. No, on the contrary. It was high all along. It's just that now I'm going to up it even further. B, therefore, I was actually deserving of that promotion and or pay raise I didn't get. And C, therefore, surely you should be on my side. Then smile and revert back to business talk, which will be your signal to them of your boundary regarding this personal short conversation, so that it doesn't drag and doesn't make your failure the focus of your communication with that other person. Being able to understand those layers that you need to address, is the subtlety. And being able to express this subtlety in words, and without saying the thing itself, but just making the listener infer what you want them to, this is sophistication. To illustrate this even more, think of the iconic Seinfeld episode of being master of your domain. Enough said. So the full sequence is of 5 steps and is very short as to not to be oppressive both to you and your counterpart. 1. Admit you're upset. 2. Keep your boundaries. So for example, if you're devastated, don't show them that. You don't want them to think you're unstable. 3. Assure it does not affect your performance nor any of your relationships at the office, i.e. you're a professional. 4. Express hope for the future to show your resilience. And 5. Pivot back to the business at hand, which is yet another manifestation of your professionalism. You don't dwell on or wallow in your own emotions, but instead you are plowing ahead, onwards and upwards. So it's just a quick in and out, and boom, you nailed it. Why is this express your distress so crucial? We're at do number 4 out of 8. So we're halfway there. Hang on. What is the psychological and practical aspects of this 4th do? There are 4 reasons why express your distress is so crucial. They are intertwined, and yet it is important to understand each in and of itself. Reason number 1 why express your distress is crucial is not showing emotions, especially when they are humanly called for, will not only not endear you to people, but also will make you look like a freak. Plus, this might disqualify you from a promotion because managing people requires emotional sophistication and subtleties, as neither you nor your potential subordinates are robots. So showing the corresponding emotion to the situation at hand, in your case the heartbreak of being passed over, is crucial, with of course the caveat that I've already addressed, that it shouldn't be excessively emotional or not appropriately emotional. We don't want to overdo it, hence my constant emphasis on sophistication and subtlety. Remember we've said you're not Larry David? Well, you're not Mr. Spock either. Sorry to step all over your artistic pretensions. But seriously, it is because you're not Mr. Spock that expressing no emotion whatsoever, especially when it is absolutely called for and reasonable, makes you a Vulcan. But unlike Mr. Spock, no one is going to revere you for that. Reason number 2 why express your distress is so crucial. When one does not express an emotion that is corresponding to the situation at hand, people might be confused as to what this person is truly about, and they might get suspicious because anything that is confusing to people, i.e., anything that doesn't follow common social scripts and behaviors, seems awkward and therefore creates discomfort, which in turn might lead to suspicion regarding that person. You don't want to be on the other end of that suspicion. Reason number 3 why express your distress is so crucial. When you're very subdued and Mr. Spock-y instead of upset, it is confusing to people in yet another way. They don't know how to behave around you. They take their cues from you on whether to address the issue of you being passed over or not, whether to console you or not, whether to approach you or avoid you, and so forth. You don't want to be in this position either. It's not conducive to what I call your office politics ranking, not to say rating. And surely you see how this bad ranking or rating is not conducing for a promotion or a pay raise or both. By the way, the good news is that most people, once you've expressed your distress to them, will be empathetic unless they dislike you, which will make them gloat, but probably only behind your back. So most people will be empathetic and will even be extra considerate for a short period of time after the matter. So you may even gain some slack cutting from everybody around you. Not that it is your goal, of course, but not too shabby. And since you're emotionally beaten, any slack cut your way and any goodwill would naturally be appreciated, won't they? Reason number 4 why express your distress is so crucial is the most crucial of them all. If passing you over for a promotion or a pay raise or both doesn't evoke any emotion in you, any overt reaction, any disappointment, know that your boss might be inclined to deduce that it wasn't that important to you, that it wasn't that big of a deal to you, and therefore he might be reinforced in his decision to pass you over this time. And worse, he might take you out of the game completely for next time, because if it doesn't impact you, you probably don't want it as badly as the other candidates. Thus, he would much rather give it to them, somebody who really wants it badly, because the assumption is that the degree of wanting is a marker of the degree of motivation. See how being a good boy employee and being very subdued in your reaction harms you? Because it absolutely does, and hopefully I have proven it to you by now. To sum this up, you must understand that you expressing your distress, as this do number 4 suggests, is not so much about you, in an odd kind of way, as it is about how people perceive you, your boss most of all. So regardless of what you feel comfortable doing, regardless of what you actually feel, say you're not devastated for whatever reason, you still need to be very conscious of the degree of emotion that you need to express in order to be in the game the next time round. Bet nobody told you any of that, right? That's why you're here on this channel. So if you want to see more, subscribe, hit the notification bell and the like button. Now, once you've done all of the above, you have perfected the psychological and political and behavioral basis needed to go on to the next do, which is derived directly from this one and would be impossible to implement without it. Indeed, they are to be implemented concurrently. So the number 5 do, what to do right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both is assert yourself to your boss and colleagues alike. Why? Because an overlooked crucial part of getting things is verbalizing you want them first to yourself, then to others. Let me stress something here because I would hate to be misunderstood on anything, but especially on this one. When I say a crucial part of getting things you want is to verbalize them, this is not some manifestation bullshit of some secret con. There is no secret here in that regard. I can't stress this enough. Oh wait, with them it wasn't verbalizing but posting on a vision board and then just letting the universe come to you. Okay, by the way, no harm in doing a vision board as long as you act on it, make a plan, acquire the relevant skills and execute whatever it is that will get you what's on the board, which is the part they forgot to mention. So you have a generation of vision boarders sitting on their ass passively, waiting for things to happen, which is the quintessential opposite of what I'm saying. So much so that I even coined a term for it, the Sleeping Beauty Syndrome. But don't get me started on this. Just know that when and if I use the word secret, it is only in its dictionary literal meaning, something people don't know, and in this case, something most career coaches, consultants, and their ilk don't know either, nor understand, nor ever talk about. Incompetence that drives me crazy, which is why I'm compelled to do what I do and say what I say. Okay, enough of that. So back to the number 5 do, what to do, which is assert yourself to your boss and colleagues alike, and the crucial part of getting things, which is verbalizing you want them. Now, the fact that you say you want something obviously does not mean you're going to get it. The point is, if nobody knows that you want the blank, whatever it is, and it is in their power to grant it to you or not to grant it, so you are dependent on them. And if you don't verbalize it, you're stacking up the odds against yourself because they don't know. Not that if they knew, they would have automatically granted you the thing. Of course not. But at least you would have been in the game, in their head, through their decision-making process. This is true for anything you desire, where you are dependent on others in getting it. So it goes way beyond the realm of work alone. By the way, here's a fun fact. Alfred Hitchcock, the acclaimed director, called it a MacGuffin, the thing that the hero is after, whatever it is that motivates him to go in his hero's journey, or hers. Since you are the hero in this story, your MacGuffin is that promotion and or pay raise. Although it turns out the creator of the MacGuffin was not Hitchcock, but a British screenwriter by the name of Angus MacPhail, who worked with Hitchcock. Anyway, the MacGuffin is a well-known term in film lingo ever since. So there you go, some old Hollywood trivia that is pertinent to our discussion and that you may nonchalantly pull out of your sleeve at some cocktail party. Okay, enough of that, back to the salt mines. The point is, if nobody knows what you want, what you're after, what your MacGuffin is, Trusting that people would somehow be able to look into your heart and know your desires, this is impractical. This is not based in reality. People rarely get what they want in this sleeping beauty kind of way where you are completely passive about it. Even a lottery ticket, you still have to go out there and buy one. So be active in all the ways I'm laying here before you. Now, even if people know what your MacGuffin is, your boss first and foremost, or at least they suspect you want that MacGuffin, in your case the promotion or pay raise, as long as you don't articulate it to them, then for all intents and purposes, especially in the eyes of your boss, you are a good boy employee, the one who will quietly accept any outcome being passed over included. Therefore, your boss would rather give the promotion or pay raise to the bad boy employee who keeps yapping about it all day long in a full-on attrition warfare, and would give said boss hell if he or she doesn't get their MacGuffin, which unfortunately for you happens to be the same as yours. See how it all comes together with everything we've spoken about regarding your boss's psychology? To brush up on that, if you like, check out the link for part 1 in the description below. So to sum up, we've seen 3 reasons for the assert yourself to your boss and colleagues alike, which is the number 5 do, what to do, right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both. Technical, pragmatic reason, which is if you don't tell them, they don't know. A political reason for the assert yourself, which is if you don't tell them, they can pretend not to know, or they may assume you want it, but also assume you don't want it as bad as the next guy or girl who keep yapping about it all day long. A third reason why you should assert yourself is the psychological one. Good boys finish last. This one deserves some iteration, so for that, let's go back to the parents and children analogy we've used before. You know how parents say no until the child exhausts them with a constant barrage of unbelievable nagging until they finally say yes? This is similar to what a bad boy does and a good boy doesn't. You already know you have to have a bad boy employee mentality, so let that be your workplace North Star. Now let me add one last reason to assert yourself. Number 4, which will conclude this video. So after the technical, the political, and the psychological, number 4 is motivational. Once you state openly, overtly, and constantly, I want that. This is what I'm after. This is what I'm here for. And you add, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. Not in a psychopathic way of stepping all over people or stabbing them in the back, but in a productive way that signals and proves your sheer motivation. I'm willing to put in the extra work. I'm willing to bust my ass for this company. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it, even at the expense of my personal life, comfort, energy, whatever it takes. No boss can stand in the way of such commitment and motivation. No one. I'm not telling you you must sacrifice your personal life. It is your choice whether to do it, and if so, to what degree. What I am telling you is how it looks from the other side. I'm giving you a peek behind the curtain to your boss's perspective. Armed with this understanding, make your own choices. Are you self-sabotaging? Are you ambivalent and conflicted about that promotion? A part of you really wants it because of the acknowledgement of your contribution, because of having more power to do things your way, because of the prestige that comes with the higher ranking position in the organizational ladder, and of course the pay raise. Who wouldn't want that? But then, on the other hand, who wants that extra hassle? Who wants to deal with difficult team members? Who wants to be between a rock and a hard place, which is the lot of any manager, especially mid-management level, which is probably where you are or desire to be, plus the longer hours. Not that you're slacking now, but still, you'd have to set an example for everybody else. That sounds very nice in theory, but in practice, it is very destructive to one's personal life. So many pros and cons. Are you sure you're settled on the pros? We'll find out. Plus, the daunting task of asking your boss for feedback, but with a twist that will surprise you. Let's go. The number 6 do out of 8, right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both, is check your attitude. Do you really want it, the promotion? Are you self-sabotaging? Are you ambivalent about getting that promotion? Nobody can ever be ambivalent regarding a pay raise, but a promotion, that's different. Yeah, the title is nice. The higher it is on the organizational hierarchy, the most prestigious it is. It boosts your ego. It creates a bit of a power dynamics that tilts you away with everybody around you, even if implicit. Plus, it easily seeps into your out-of-work life. Getting a date as a manager is easier than an entry-level, junior, run-of-the-mill, rank-and-file employee, at least for men. So that's another pro. With this mix of pros and cons, you have to make sure you really want it. And if not, that's absolutely fine. I'll do a video about that sometime, because there are so many employees who are pressured, implicitly or explicitly, by their peers, their family, their friends, or just the omnipresent culture of vertical achievement, which is supposed to be the epitome of corporate success and therefore success as a whole. As I noted, well, you might have noted that I've said supposed, because it really doesn't have to be, but I'll address it sometime in the future. So if you don't really want that promotion and you're doing it just because you think you should be doing it, two things will happen. A, your ambivalence will be apparent to everybody around you. Your boss especially will know you're just going through the motions, so faking it. Because people who really want a promotion, who have that fire in them, that very specific kind of drive, it really shows. And in contrast, it is very clear when somebody does not have it. B, if you happen to get that promotion you didn't really want, this can happen sometimes when the position needs to be filled urgently and there are no other compatible candidates other than you. So if you happen to get that promotion you didn't really want this way, you are going to be both miserable and an underperformer. You're just not going to be successful, and you might even get fired the moment they realize you suck, or the moment they can find somebody to replace you, which they will be looking for frantically. So not a good idea, which is why you really must be honest with yourself and with your boss as to whether the promotion is something you truly desire and whether you can indeed produce results for both you and the company. There are other ways to get a pay raise. It doesn't necessarily have to be a vertical promotion. Moving on, the number 7 do, and second to last, right after being passed over for a promotion or a pay raise or both, is ask for feedback, but with a twist, which is don't expect to get a real one. Instead, your goal with this feedback is quite the reverse, as we'll explore in a moment. But first, we need to get rid of a preliminary problem, which is probably the fact that the mere suggestion of asking your boss for a feedback is probably giving you the shivers. You may be thinking, you want me to do what? Ask for feedback? And without even expecting to get a real one? So why even bother? It's not like it's fun for me going into my boss's office asking for a one-on-one meeting in these circumstances of just being passed over by this very same boss. I so hear you. I would have said the same if I were you, but remember, I'm on your side. I have a plan. The goal of such a meeting is completely different. Hear me out. Right now, you're in a state of shock and are not sure as to where to go next, what to do next, which is why you're here on my channel to know. So, if you like most people in this kind of inner turmoil, you would tend not to challenge your boss on his or her decision to pass you over, thinking, what is there to say? The boss has spoken loud and clear through his or her decision not to promote me. Why would I go through this yet another humiliation by asking for feedback? I got my feedback. I was tossed aside. That's all the feedback I need. Thank you very much. Again, I totally hear you. And again, I'm on your side. And you promised to hear me out. I'm not done yet. Listen. This feedback with a twist ties in perfectly to what we've talked about in part 2 of this series about where I showed you why you should be a bad boy employee and how to do it right. Remember the paradox with the good boy and the bad boy with the analogy to parents and kids? Well, it all comes together now. I love it when a plan comes together. If you indeed, as most people in your position would, refrain from initiating a meeting with your boss, then this lack of challenge from you to your boss means that you are condemning yourself to be relegated by him or her to be the good boy employee status, to have the good boy employee status, which is completely counterproductive to your end goal, which is never ever being passed over again, which means come next opportunity for a promotion and or pay raise, it must be in the bag, your bag. Therefore, you can't afford to be tagged in your boss's mind as a good boy employee because, as you know by now, this would mean you are doomed. You're not getting that next promotion and or pay raise because there will always be some bad boy employee asserting themselves to your boss in a consistent and unrelenting manner until they get it. And when they do, guess who gets screwed all over again? And by the way, this tagging process in your boss's mind is subconscious, which makes it even more dangerous to you. And if you're willing to let this happen after everything you've been through with this workplace snub that you got, what have we been doing here for the last 2, 3, 4 videos of this masterclass? Have you heard anything I've said? Look, it's your prerogative. I'm telling you how to win, but if you don't want it badly enough to be bothered going outside of your comfort zone by initiating a one-on-one with your boss, then maybe you should rewind and check the previous do number 6, about the potential ambivalence you may have regarding truly wanting that promotion. Do that. But for those who are still with me and who are not ambivalent, who are not bowing out and want to go for the win, I'm here for you, so let's move on. So this do number 7 out of 8 is ask for feedback but with a twist, and it's time to reveal the full twist. It's a twofold twist. A, I've already mentioned, ask for feedback but without expecting to get a real one. And here comes the big reveal, drum roll please. B, the second part of the twist is, your goal is not for your boss to give you feedback, but for you to give your boss feedback. Don't freak out. Let me explain what I mean. Your goal is to be tagged in your boss's mind, consciously or subconsciously, as a bad boy employee. Thus, one whom must be appeased to keep the industrial peace in the team and the department as a whole. You do that by implementing the amalgamation of everything we've covered, which, all put together, is now your superpower. Let me prove it to you. I'm building your confidence to do this. You know that, right? You have the effective mental infrastructure we've laid in the first 3 do's. Understand your boss's psychology and how it can work to your advantage. Be a bad boy employee and getting the bad boy employee mentality right. Then you have the tools for implementations. For implementation, with do number 4, express your distress, and do number 5, assert yourself to your boss and colleagues alike. If you need to brush up on any of this, no problem. Just pause now, go back to parts 1, 2, and 3 of this series. It's up here. And then come back. On top of all that, you have number 6. Do number 6 we've just covered in this video of checking your attitude regarding promotion to make sure you really want it and you're not self-sabotaging. So you can absolutely do it. You have everything you need to do this. Do number 7 of asking your boss for feedback, but with a twist. So all this iteration of your superpower was to convince you can do it. Hopefully I've managed to do it, and now I'll show you exactly how. Here is the precise sequence you need to execute as soon as possible. Step number 1, there are 13. Step into your boss's office and set up a one-on-one meeting in the very near future, as in today, tomorrow, another time this week, next week tops. Step 2, if your boss inquires as to what's the urgency and what's it about, have this come back ready to shoot out. It's in regard to you passing me over, and it's urgent for obvious reasons. Make sure to speak in a very respectful and non-combative manner. This is crucial. You are not there to burn bridges. You are there to make your stance known. There's a big difference. Note this step perfectly implements the bad boy mentality in both the what and the how. First, the what. Going in there, requesting a meeting, that's already asserting yourself. Then the addition of it's urgent for obvious reasons is pure bad boy, because you're not saying anything regarding your plans for the future, which, just between the two of us, you're not sure of yourself, but you are making it clear that you are weighing your situation post being passed over, and you're not taking it lying down. But careful, don't overdo it. Be sure to remember and implement the don'ts plural, we've covered in another video of what not to do right after being passed over. This series is about what to do. From the don'ts video, there are 2, among others. Do not leave and do not threaten to leave. So that's the what. The how that perfectly implements the bad boy mentality is the respectful, non-combative manner, which should be always present when communicating with your boss. And another crucial don't from the what not to do video is don't be passive aggressive in any way, shape, or form. Okay, step number 3 in this sequence. Do your homework. Prepare yourself for the meeting as if for a performance review. The what of this step is make a case for why you deserved that promotion or pay raise you didn't get. Map your unique contribution to the relevant metrics of the department's success, which is, of course, your boss's success. And the how of this step is be concise and factual, not emotional, and by emotional, I mean no overt displays of emotions other than some natural distress as is expected in your situation as we've discussed before. So, no whining of any sort, please, and for sure, absolutely no crying. Step number 4 in this sequence of asking your boss for feedback but with a twist is update colleagues that are bound to see you going into the meeting about it ahead of time and right after. This way you can be ahead of the story, as it is called in PR, public relations, meaning you proactively move the narrative, i.e., you're taking control over what they think is going on between you and your boss, rather than allowing the grapevine to circulate unsubstantiated rumors that may not serve you. When speaking to those colleagues, don't go into details of what you're going to say, nor afterwards of what your boss said exactly. Why? 3 reasons. A, it's none of their business. B, you don't want to commit yourself one way or the other because you don't know how it's going to play out exactly. And you don't want to make an idiot out of yourself by going in with a bang and coming out with a whimper. Unless, of course, we're talking about colleagues who are real friends, in which case, by all means, share everything you feel comfortable sharing. And C, regarding the after, when you share with your colleagues after the meeting with your boss, you need to be careful about what you share because you need to be discreet. You don't want your boss to think you're a kiss and tell kind of guy or gal. And surely you understand I'm using this idiom figuratively only. Okay, now to the meeting itself. Step 5, be sure to have the door closed for privacy and your phone turned off for obvious reasons. Step 6, start with a statement regarding how disappointed and surprised and upset you were to find out you were passed over. Take a breath and see if your boss reacts to this declaration. If so, listen carefully to fully understand what is being said so that you can answer accordingly. If not, go on to the next step. Step number 7, ask directly, why not me? Say it without stuttering, without flinching, and without fidgeting. Just look your boss straight in the eye and say it. Do not express it in a tone of blame, but of an inquiry. You really want to know why not you? Then pause and wait for the answer to come. Step 8. If the answer is, as probability suggests, meaning some bullshit, sweet-talking gibberish of how difficult it was to choose between you and the other guy or gal, and how wonderful you are, blah, blah, and or trying to divert from directly addressing the issue to blaming outside pressures from superiors, whatever it is, address it accordingly. Do not be afraid to show your boss you're not buying what he or she is saying, or that you disagree, or that you accept, all depending on what is being said. To do that, you must make sure you are truly listening. As I said previously on this series, most bosses are not true leaders, but more of an administrative bureaucrats whom are more likely than not be wimps when confronted directly, as you are now doing, though of course you are being respectful, as we've said. However, should your boss turn out to be the exception, that would be wonderful, although more difficult for you. Why? Well, wonderful because you will get the truth, and that will enable you to best course correct. You'll know what is hampering you from getting that promotion and or pay raise. And difficult because, as the Jack Nicholson character in A Few Good Men said, you can't handle the truth. He does it better. Most people, indeed cannot. Make sure you can. It's the key to success. Step 9 out of 13. In either case, whether your boss gives you concrete answers or bullshit answers, state clearly and directly and concisely that you really want that promotion and or pay raise, and then ask, step number 10, what do I have to do to get it the next time around? If you do it sincerely and respectfully, it will give your boss an opportunity to be a guide or a mentor to you, which he or she may like. And in any case, it will set you on a positive and constructive new relationship where your boss feels respected and looked up to by you, which is a good thing to have in a delicate balance with a bad boy employee mentality. This delicate dance between the two should be the core of your relationship. Step 11, we're getting there. Ask when the next opportunity will come to pass. As I've explained in a previous video, your boss probably doesn't know and cannot commit to a specific time frame at this time, but your asking is yet another signal to him or her that you mean business. Then, to sum up, note that you are respectfully taking charge of the meeting and moving it ahead. So then, to sum up, step number 12, declare you're going to do everything your boss said in regard to how you can get that promotion and or pay raise come next time, and that you trust that you won't be passed over again. Be sure to end with an upbeat note and show you're optimistic for the future and you are going to work even harder. We've talked about this precise wording before. Step 13 and last in this meet the boss for a feedback with a twist sequence is suggest and get your boss's approval to have another meeting like this one in 3 months' time to see if and to make sure that you're on the right course at that time. No boss can disagree to that. Once you've completed this sequence of total 13 steps, it sounds like a lot, but it's very organic in nature, as you saw. I just wanted to break it down for you so that you would have a step-by-step action plan to make it easier for you. So now that you've completed the sequence, you have successfully implemented everything we've talked about, all the do's 1 through 7, but one. Number 8, the final one, which is a game changer regarding what to do after you've been passed over, and it will help us conclude this series with a bang. So in the next and final video of this series, I will show you, wait for it, how to not give a fuck and get your way, but in a good way. Imagine that. Not to give a fuck and get your way, but in a good way. Hey Busters, today we go out with a bang. You'll see how not to give a fuck and get promoted. That will surprise you at how effective it is and how it can get you that promotion and pay raise next time. You will also learn the counterintuitive reason why this very workplace you're in, the one that has betrayed you with that snub of being passed over, is actually the best skill building playground you've ever had, and how you can have a ball playing in it on your way to your future promotion and pay raise either there or elsewhere. So stay tuned. So the number 8 and last do what to do right after being passed over for promotion or pay raise or both is use this workplace as your practice ground. You've got nothing to lose and much to gain. Okay, first some context. One of the first things you've probably wanted to do right after being passed over is to say, F this place, quit and go elsewhere. What I'm here to tell you is that you can do all that, you can do just that, but without the quitting part. You would be an idiot to leave now. So we've come full circle with the first video in this snub stack, as I call it. Check it out here and you'll see what I mean. On top of everything in that video, there's another reason why you should not quit right now. Note, I'm only saying that for right now, which is the following. If you think changing your workplace will magically grant you that promotion or pay raise or both, you are gravely mistaken. You are about to be bitterly disappointed if you didn't get it because of the reasons for which most people don't get it. That is, issues regarding your performance, poor understanding of office politics, which usually stems from poor understanding or even a total misunderstanding of how organizations operate and how bosses make decisions, which, by the way, will be the very topics I'll cover in a huge new stack I'll be uploading next. So if these are the reasons you didn't get it, I guarantee the same thing will happen in your next workplace and the next one after that for all eternity. You need to let the following sink in. It's not them, it's you. The issue is always you and has been always you. And until you change, nothing will change in regards to your promotion and or pay raise. Therefore, skipping from one workplace to the next, just because of your bruised ego, is counterproductive and will, 9 out of 10 times, ruin your career. It's very much like relationships. You can hop from one relationship to another, and whenever something goes wrong, blame the other party. Surely they have some part of the blame, but what about you? If you've been dating all over the place, only to find out each time how screwed your partner is, wondering how come you never get to meet a normal one, then you need to zoom out and be honest about what's really going on here. And if you do, you will come to acknowledge that the only common denominator in all those failed relationships is you. So before you hop on to the next relationship, all along thinking all women are nuts or all men are nuts, depending on whom you're dating, you better stay single for a while to figure yourself out. And then, if you're still interested in a relationship, you'll find out that women or men have miraculously become easier to get along with. Imagine that. What an incredible thing to happen. It's the same with work. If you think all your bosses and all your co-workers in all the places you've ever worked at were screwed up, no matter the company, the industry, all screwed up, then there's never any rhyme or reason to the way they are and the way they treat you. From your perspective, they're just screwed up and that's that. Maybe that's how they were born, maybe that's how you were raised, who knows? But if you zoom out, just like with relationships, and be honest about what's really going on here, you will have to come to acknowledge that the only common denominator in all those failed workplace relationships with your boss or co-workers is, once again, you. However, unlike with relationships, I won't advise you to be single work-wise because the analogy would be being unemployed. Furthermore, I strongly advise you that even if you can afford being unemployed, don't. For a few reasons, most of which I've gone through in detail in the video I've just mentioned, the what not to do video. The gist of it is that it hinders getting a new job. But another reason, not in that video, is that without a job, you cannot practice the mega mind makeover I'm talking about. And you cannot acquire and practice the skills, plural, I'm talking about. These things are useless when only theoretical. They can only be mastered when practiced, hands-on, day in, day out in a workplace environment. Conclusion, you have to work on fixing and improving yourself first. You have to figure out why you were passed over, truly why, then make a plan, then get the skills. And what's a better place to practice those necessary skills than your current workplace? Seriously, what have you got to lose? You already have lost. All that can happen now is that you gain. Use this workplace as your playground, free from the inhibitions that usually bind you and prevent you from pushing the envelope in regard to your navigation of office politics. In other words, the inhibitions that prevent you from how much of a bad boy employee versus a good boy employee you manage or even dare to actually be. What I'm offering you, what I'm suggesting, is a workplace dream come true, which is, as promised, how not to give a fuck and get promoted, but in a good way. Let me give you some examples. It will make everything crystal clear. Say you had concluded a successful project and you want to show off about it a bit, and why not? You've done a great job and you deserve the accolades. Plus, you really think others could benefit from it because you've come to be the expert on the best practices for that issue, which could save them tons of time and hassle. So, whereas up till now, you would have been hesitant to brag about your successful project, and I'm not talking about anything excessive or annoying, I'm just talking about the justified and legitimate and even needed PR that one should be able to do on behalf of oneself. So, whereas up till now you would be hesitant to brag about it because you were scared of what your co-workers will say to your face or behind your back, or what they will think about you, whether they articulate it or not, now you can put all these worries aside. You can overcome them because you have already lost what you wanted, that promotion and pay raise. So what could possibly happen? Remember, you wanted to quit. You wanted to F the whole company off. So you are already at rock bottom in terms of how you feel about coming to work each and every day and giving it your all. And what I said to you was that you can have all that effing everybody off as if you quit, but without the actual quitting. You can always quit later, but until you do, can you see the freedom that you gain when you realize, yeah, I'm here for now, but maybe I'll be gone later on. And so I don't need to give so much weight to what they're thinking or saying about me. Plus, I've tried this strategy. It didn't work. I was a good boy employee. Where did it get me? Nowhere. The bad boy employee got the promotion. The bad girl employee got the pay raise, not me. So why even bother with binding myself and inhibiting myself and subduing myself, in the case of this example, of bragging tastefully about something I deserve to brag about? If I don't brag on my behalf tastefully, who will? Can I trust my co-workers to sing my praise for me? No. Can I trust my boss to sing my praise for me? No. They may or may not do it. Either way, it's out of your control. Things won't happen to you because you put them on a vision board, as we've talked about before. You have to make them happen. You have to take action. And then, if somebody does something nice for you, that's great. But that's a bonus. You cannot build on that if you're serious about getting that promotion and pay raise. And what this entire snub stack is about is taking over control. And by the way, your coworkers and your boss will either, well, they will or they will not sing your praise, either because of their own personality, whether they like to root for people or not, either because they are in competition with you and they don't want to give you a leg up, or because they never heard you talk about it and they were not involved in that specific project, so they don't even know it was that successful. Remember, we've talked about asserting yourself to your boss and colleagues alike. This is yet another example of where it needs to be implemented. So when you say to yourself what I have just said, speaking from your point of view, and you keep repeating it over and over to yourself in a repetitive auto-suggestion, auto as in autobiography, meaning about your own self. So when you keep auto-suggesting yourself with these notions, you set yourself free of all the mental and emotional and therefore also behavioral excess baggage that has been weighing on you. This is the most liberating thing you can do for yourself in the workplace. This will get you true empowerment, not the overused, cheapened, prostitutionalized term HR uses, but rather the true, pure essence of it. Trust me, you would experience it to the point of intoxication. I kid you not. This is not hyperbole. Which is why you need to be careful, because it might get you a hangover in the form of a backlash if you take it too far. Which brings us again to what I've mentioned numerous times. It's all about nuance, and nuance requires sophistication and that many degrees of subtleties, which is exactly what we've been doing here in this series I call the Emergency Snub Stack. In case of emergency, break glass. See how it all comes together? I love it when a plan comes together. And you know what the best, most beautiful irony is? This should blow your mind. All this not giving a fuck and getting promoted can only be applied in a workplace you want to quit. Let me say it again, as it is so counterintuitive, yet so crucial. The how not to give a fuck and get promoted can only be applied in a workplace you want to quit. Why is that? Because, well, it's like relationships again. Think about it. The more you want your partner, the less risk you're willing to take. The more careful you are not to hurt their feelings, not to say something you would later regret. You know the hefty price you'll have to pay for doing the wrong thing. Same here. The sexier a workplace is, meaning more desirable, so that many people apply and want to become employees, so it has a high status in its industry and the workforce as a whole. So the more you want to work there, the more careful your attitude and behavior will be. You can do a thought experiment that will prove this, although I'm quite sure you already know it's true. Imagine quitting and somehow managing to find a new workplace quite soon. Surely you see how in that new place you wouldn't dare do even half of what you dare here in your current workplace. First of all, in any new place, you need to prove yourself, and you don't have any of the back credit you have in your current workplace, even if that credit is mixed with ups and downs. Also, In the new place, you tread very mildly because you need to forge new relationships. And on top of that, you don't know how things work. You're not orientated in the most basic way. You can hardly find your way to the bathroom, potato, without getting lost in the maze of corridors, let alone know all the ropes. So now, when I say the how not to give a fuck and get a promotion can only be applied in a workplace you want to quit, it's starting to make sense, right? Let's do another example to further establish that which is sinking now into your psyche and soul, which is what I want. Say you have a conflict with a coworker. He or she is stealing the ideas that you came up with and presenting them as their own, which is one of the most infuriating things that can happen to you in a workplace. Speaking of which, specific training as to what to do in both those cases, i.e. how to promote yourself and what to do when a coworker steals your work, will be uploaded in the future. Let me know if you're interested so that I know what priority to give them. So when a coworker is stealing your ideas, whereas previously you would be extremely hesitant as to confront that person directly or at all, because you didn't want to come off as too aggressive or too possessive of your ideas instead of being a team player, or to be regarded as a jealous person or a vindictive person, or whatever it was that shackled you from acting, in spite of the fact that both common sense and sheer justice would suggest you absolutely should act on it. Then now that you are already passed over and you are weighing your place in the company and you're mulling over leaving, you certainly have nothing to lose. What's the worst that could happen? We're not talking about doing something horrific that will in and of itself get you fired. You're in a not so bad shape in spite of being passed over. You are employed. Had they wanted to fire you, by now they would have. So the coast is clear for now. Of course, anything is possible always. The workplace market is very dynamic. So since the coast is clear for now, why not use it to your advantage? So someone will think you're aggressive or possessive or jealous or whatever. So what? You can choose to quit anytime. I've advised against doing it right now, but not forever. You're not stuck there forever and ever. And when you do leave, you'll never see them again. So why even be bothered with what they say or think? See how thinking like this frees you? And remember, being varying degrees of a doormat or a spineless good boy employee as you were before didn't exactly get you any extra credit. At least not with your boss, whom decided to snub you in that promotion and pay raise. And that, my friend, suggests you didn't have that much credit, not only with your boss, but with your co-workers as well. How do I know? Because bosses are very much influenced implicitly and explicitly, consciously and subconsciously, by the vibe they get about you from the team, to which they add their own direct observations of you as they see you handle different situations. Maybe your boss saw you take it in the gut silently in all sorts of circumstances where you should have asserted yourself instead, and maybe that's what made him or her decide against you for that promotion and pay raise. You never know. It is absolutely possible, and I've seen it happen. Food for thought, isn't it? So self-shackling, self-inhibiting, self-subduing are all forms of manifestations of examples of being a good boy employee, thus a sure way to undermine your potential for getting that coveted promotion and pay raise. And each time you didn't directly confront anyone at work who deserved it, you regressed a step. You regressed a square on the Monopoly game board we all play on. And by confronting, I'm not talking about having a fist fight, of course not. I'm talking about effective verbal confrontation of standing your ground. If you'd like a video about how to do that exactly, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to make it. But if you think leaving is on the table for you, then you are in control of the situation and you can decide to up the ante and play a higher risk game for a higher reward. Potentially. No one can guarantee anything in life. When you decide to play a higher risk game for a higher reward, potentially, you can then confront your coworker when deserved. You can then assert yourself to your boss when needed, respectfully of course. You can set boundaries to an unreasonable client, and you can tell off a vendor that did not deliver, with all the respect of course. You can do all that when you switch from what will they say or what will happen, so operating in the mindset of fear, to I don't give a fuck, I'm leaving anyway, potentially sometime, so I might as well do XYZ. Or what is there to be afraid of? The worst already happened. I was snubbed. So treading extra mildly with everybody around me didn't pay off. On the contrary, this is the thing that screwed me up. So I might as well go the opposite way. Remember George Costanza and the opposite episode? So like that. See how we're coming full circle, right, left, and center here? If you don't know what I mean, check out the What Not to Do Masterclass right here. If you keep failing at something, anything, do everything opposite than what you've done before. I'm using opposite figuratively. It should be different, and different sometimes is the opposite of what you did before, and sometimes it's not a full 180, but a 30 or 90 or whatever degree different than before, as long as you're not repeating that which has already failed you, which would be really stupid and counterproductive. What I've just described is a high wire game, but you, my friend, are off the wire altogether. You are too cemented to the ground. You have no game. Now you can have. I've given you the tools for how to understand the game and how to play it. Indeed, playing a higher risk game for a potential higher reward is what business is all about, and you are a part of it, even as a salaried employee rather than a business owner. So now that you understand the game better than you ever had, will you play it? It's up to you. I did my part. To sum this whole snub stack up, the counterintuitive reality is that the best way to break free from your good boy employee shackles is to stay put in the very workplace that has shackled you, position-wise and salary-wise, by not giving you that promotion and pay raise. How so? Because these are two different kinds of shackles, and you need to understand how they interplay with one another to get your way. There are the physical shackles of your position and purse, and there are the mental shackles of your mindset and mode. How about both those alliterations, huh? The shackles of your position and purse are manifested by you being passed over for that promotion and pay raise you wanted. Thus, by being snubbed, you have been shackled to your current position in the hierarchy, your current rung on the organizational ladder. The shackles of your mindset and mode are manifested by you choosing to be a good boy employee, either because you thought it will get you what you wanted or because it's part of your character and inhibitions. Either way, it did not work. It caused the exact opposite of what you wanted. And both those shackles interplay is thus: the physical shackling, i.e. being passed over, can be blamed to the largest degree on your self-inflicted mental shackling, i.e. your choice to be a good boy employee. And as we saw, there is a way out of this conundrum, but let me now add, it comes with a crucial caveat. It only works if you were indeed deserving of that promotion and pay raise you didn't get. And you being truly deserving is the premise of this whole snub stack. Because if not, that's a whole other ball game. Everything I said is based on the assumption of you not getting your due. So, what's the way out of this conundrum? Break free from the shackles that are in your control, which are your mental shackles. And that will free you not to give a fuck and still get promoted, but in a good way, which is the way I have meticulously described throughout this 6-part series. The first installment being what not to do after being passed over, and then the 5 parts of what to do, of which this is the last one. In other words, and here we come full circle once again, unlike the first installment where I dissuaded you from trying to pull a George Costanza by quitting in a fury, thinking that you can then come back as if nothing has happened, remember that? Here, I give you full license to go all in and do a complete George Costanza opposite. Break yourself free from your mental shackles of mindset and mode by going full bad boy employee on your boss and co-workers. Mind you, only in the way I've described it. Don't go crazy on me now. And with time, your boss will have to free you from your physical shackles of position and purse by finally granting you the promotion and pay raise you so deserve. So don't give a fuck and get promoted. I think this qualifies as going out with a bang as promised, don't you? Some final words of encouragement. I know it seems daunting. The road ahead is treacherous and tricky, but you will get there, and I'll be here all the way to see you through it and give you all the additional tools you need. We'll go through this together. You have my word. Okay, I'm done. Now it's your turn. I'm dying to hear what you think about everything we've talked about. What are you already implementing? What more do you need? If you'd like the full transcript of this video and all the videos on this channel, see the link in the description. It's on our website, bossproblembuster.com, because it's too long to paste here, so not a trick to get you there. But if you do hop over, you'll find many practical reads and a forum where you can discreetly and anonymously ask us anything in regards to landing that promotion and pay raise, to which we reply very quickly. Each video drops inconvenient truth bombs on you right, left, and center, all very direct, pragmatic, and very much non-PC. No fluff, No bullshit. So, if you'd like to get a promotion with a pay raise or a pay raise independent of a promotion, kill your Monday blues and bring your inner joy back, and if you can handle the truth, you can handle the truth. I'm channeling Jack Nicholson. Then subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell so that we can meet again. And until then, go back to work. You know, I can't help you get that promotion and pay raise if you don't actually do the job.